Jesus, set my heart.
Hi guys, welcome to Life and Beyond. In today's video, we will be talking about how to communicate how we feel. I am obviously no communication expert, but I just want to share with you what I've learned and what I'm trying to practice. I hope this video is helpful. We'll be discussing about the what do you want to communicate? How do you want to communicate? Why do you feel that you need to communicate whatever you want to communicate? And when and why is it important? Why is the when important of when you are going to
Speak, let all the curtains fall.
You might or might not know this, but communication is an essential part of your daily life, obviously, because you are a unique person. You are an individual who has a whole world inside of them, emotions, perceptions, you have thoughts, you have so many things that are going on inside you, and yet you have to interact with other people that have a lot going on inside them. So how do you relate? So basically through communication, right? Communication is so important that even as a medical doctor or a medical student, you are going to learn about communicating. Things that can hinder your consultation with your patient, that can hinder how much your patient opens up to you, that can hinder literally how your whole patient doctor relationship is going to go, right? Because obviously we're not in the 14th century anymore, and the patients are not like a passive recipient of whatever you're going to do to them. Like, you just give them treatment and they just do it. So we basically believe that the patient plays an active role in their treatment. Enough about medical communication. Let's come back to normal people communication. Obviously, you need communication to build and maintain relationships at work, with your spouse, with your children, with your friends, right? And wherever there's an interaction, there is communication. And communication is obviously not just verbal communication. Your body language is the way you communicate. Your response to things, your facial expression. Yeah, facial expressions, they usually not really good for us, because you like roll your eyes at someone and might have been like an authority. Anyway, there's different ways that you communicate, and I'm gonna say this a lot in a lot of my videos, but a lot of things are traced back to your childhood. So that basically means that how you communicate now might just be a reflection of your childhood, because if you grew up in an environment where you were not given the space to talk, the opportunity, where your emotions and your perceptions were not, like, people were not interested in it, were not interested in hearing you, you might grow up to be an adult that cannot communicate how they feel, because they were brought up in an environment where feelings were not welcomed, where emotions were not welcomed, where when you cry as a child, someone is like, why are you crying? You shouldn't be crying. So there's different things that happen in your childhood that will obviously affect how you see life as an adult. And guys, it's so important to always trace back and identify like some of the things you do, right? For example, I'm a very anxious communicator. Like, if I need to communicate something, right, I get very anxious about it. I get very, very anxious, because growing up, there wasn't an opportunity to speak about how you feel. That is just rude. That is basically rude. You are angry because I gave you rice instead of potatoes. Do you know that other children don't even have starch? That's just an example. I never got that. Like, I just ate, you know, I ate. But take the time to trace back some of the things you do in your adulthood to your childhood. And you have to decide as an adult, was what I was taught, was what I internalized healthy for me? Is it healthy for me as an adult? Maybe if you were ignored, you were not listened to, you were just pushed back, now you feel like others don't care. Like, I'm just gonna talk and no one is gonna listen to me. You know, like, my opinion doesn't matter. It's just better if I keep quiet. There's just things that you do that you know are not healthy. and that you should always try to identify. I am touching my hair. Guys, I love these braids, honestly. But just take the time to like trace some things you do back to your childhood for yourself, okay? Just so that you heal and you do the work, okay? So we are going to be talking about the what. If you are someone who struggles with communication, you might want to start with asking yourself simple questions. What do you want to communicate? Are you trying to communicate how you feel? You want to communicate an idea? You want to communicate an experience? What are you trying to communicate to this person, okay? Is it how they made you feel? Is it about something they did? Is it something that you would like them to change? So depending on what you want to communicate, you can take different steps, right? And then again, I'm going to say, I am no communication expert, please. Okay. What are you trying to achieve by communicating this thing that you want to communicate with the other person? Okay, let's say someone offended you, right? So you want to communicate, the what is you want to communicate that they offended you, right? What are you trying to achieve by communicating that they offended you? Are you hoping that they are going to ask for forgiveness? Are you hoping to set a boundary so that they do not offend you in the same way again? Are you hoping to find out if they did it purposefully or if it was maybe a mistake? So what are you trying to achieve by communicating that this person offended you? What are you trying to achieve by just communicating this idea or this experience? Even if you're just sharing, why do you want to share about that experience? What are you hoping that it's going to bring out in the other person or in your relationship, whatever it is, okay? So after you've decided what you want to communicate and what you are hoping to communicate, you can talk about the how. And the how is so important because messages get lost in the how. Guys, you could literally want to tell someone, I love you, but just because you sent them, love you, you have lost it. That is not love. That is not love to me. Love you. Who is loving me? Like, you are missed. Why are you telling me I am missed? Who is missing me? Is the chair missing me? You say, I miss you. I love you. It's from you to me. Not love you. Miss you. You are missed. Honestly. So, but then again, that's very subjective to how people want things to be communicated to them. So your how needs to be broken down in several steps, right? How refers to how will you do it? The mode of communication, right? So my friends, they love phone calls. And when they want to talk on phone calls, you must give them a time slot. It mustn't be less than 30 minutes because then you will feel like you're rushing things. They want 1 hour of your time to talk to you, right? And I'm a text person, like text messages person. I'm okay if you just text me. Not all the time, like you can call me sometimes, but like I prefer texting. Are you going to text your message? Are you going to want to speak face to face? Are you going to use a phone call? Are you going to use a letter? Are you going to use any mean of communication? I'm sure you are not dealing with your issues via email, like personal issues. Obviously work stuff, you would use emails. So you have to decide the how, the mode of how you're going to communicate this point across, right? Then say you are angry about something. You might be angry, but you actually communicating in a tone that's like, you know, when you do this, it really makes me feel angry. It will have more effect than if you like, when you do this, do you know you make me angry? You make me angry. Remember that you are communicating with someone who also has their own perception. They have their own experiences. They have their own thoughts. And you will actually take the focus away from you trying to communicate that you are angry to you being angry. They're just going to be like, you're an angry person, man. but you're actually just trying to communicate that this specific thing, when you do it, it actually makes me angry, right? So your how, you remember that you have to be graceful with how you speak about how you feel, right? But let them focus on how this is making you feel, not she is angry. Because if they focus on she is angry, they're going to focus on the anger rather than we deal with the anger. How do we deal with the sadness? Okay, let them not focus on the emotion, rather that something made you feel that way. Okay, so you have to do it gracefully. The Bible says clearly that the power of life and death is in the tongue, guys. There's things that we say when we are sad, when we are angry, when we are confused, that just shifts the atmosphere around us and just has the power to build or destroy. And it also encourages us to build others with our words. So don't go to someone. And one thing that I've noticed and that I myself personally hate is the use of the word always and never. Really, it's really not a nice thing to say. Like, you never cook for me. You never answer my calls. So the problem with that, using the word always and never, is that you're actually being unappreciative of when the person actually does it. Because there is obviously instances where you feel like the person never calls you, but practically out of 10 times, the person probably called you twice or 3 times, but to you, it feels like you've never called me. And that to the other person tells them that you don't actually appreciate the 2 out of 10 times that I've called you. And that can lead to something other than that. Because for me, if you like calls, right? And I am a texter, so I call you twice a week, and you would love me to call you 5, 6, 7 times a week. If you come to me and tell me that you never call me, I will stop calling you. I will stop calling you because you are not appreciating the 2 times I called you. And that's actually me also stepping out. I'm joking, guys. I won't stop calling you, but I would probably feel like I should stop calling you because you're not appreciating me calling you those 2 times. But obviously, you have to acknowledge how the other person feels. Always. You always late. But what about the times that they were early? Okay, those are things that actually makes the whole point lost. You always and you never. It's very, you are accusing them. It's very like you are accusing someone of doing. What's your tone? If it's something very serious to you and you really want to communicate this to someone else, try not to be sarcastic. Because sarcasm can get you either through things. The other person is going to be offended, or they are not going to take you seriously, or they are going to also develop an attitude, right? So you also watch your attitude, you watch your body language, right? You allow the other person to process what you are going to say. You don't give them a whole without, I'm always like, I always have to force myself onto you, and I always and at the end of the day, what did you communicate? What did you communicate? What am I supposed to actually hear from what you're trying to tell me? As compared to, I feel like this and this is really affecting me. You make sure that what you are communicating is not coming out as an attack to the person. And one thing I forgot to mention is in your what do you expect to achieve by speaking up about this feeling that you have. I think one thing that should be your motivation is so that you feel better. Because having expectations of how what you are going to say is going to be taken as or dealt with will put you on a very thin line. Because look at my shutter. Because if the person doesn't react how you expected them to react, that again shakes up your communication. You go back into a state of, you see, I actually opened up to him and I told him how I felt, and he didn't care, and no one is interested. But if you tell yourself that no matter what this person does after I tell them, no matter how they react, I want to come out of this opening myself up feeling better. I let go of this feeling, of these thoughts that might actually not be the truth. Because remember that you have your truth and the other person has their truth. But the other thing you have to understand is that you might not be heard, and that doesn't mean that no one will hear you. It's a message that goes from one person to another person, and there's so many things that get messages lost, right? So we obviously don't expect the other person to invalidate what we're trying to communicate with them, because at the end of the day, we just want to be heard. Before I get lost in a lot of different things, it's important to remember when, okay? Why is when important? Let me tell you a story of why. There was a time that I was moving out of my place, right? So I had like a lot of things like food stuff and like dishcloths, you name it, whatever it was, right? Like, hey, do you guys need this? Hey, would you guys like this? Would you like sugar? Would you like... And it almost felt like I was forcing them to take those things, or like pestering them. No, but they didn't want it, right? For their own reasons. So I really felt offended. So in my offense, I decided that whatever I come across, right, I'm throwing it away. I'm putting it in a bin bag. It doesn't matter if it's new, if it's unused, if whatever I come across, I'm not asking anybody or begging anybody to take anything that I think that they might need. I am throwing it. So eventually I start doing that. So she finds the bag, and then she's like, why are you throwing this away? Mary, this is new. This is a new dishcloth. Why are you trying this? Mary, why are you trying this? And I snapped, guys. Like, I literally snapped. And the thing with me is that I can't stay angry for long, because it weighs me down, right? I'm really like, I'm always like, but when I'm angry, I am angry. I am angry. In that moment, I actually thank my friend that she didn't respond, because we would have fought. We probably would have fought, right? But she didn't respond. She just looked at me like, you are one crazy person. And then she just left it. But why am I talking about the story is that the when. Remember, I was saying, imagine if when I first got offended, I spoke about the fact that I was offended by their reaction to me trying to give them things that I thought they would need. Instead of me piling it up and then the reaction being bigger than it could have been if I had spoken out the first time. So when you speak out is also very important, as to for the other person also to remember, like, you're not going to speak about them offending you 1 month ago. That firstly means that you've been keeping that offense in your heart for so long, which has now grown into bitterness and anger and just given fruits of darkness. Like, it's like a whole tree now. So if you communicate the first time, you make it actually very simple for the person to understand that this is how she feels. And you also decrease the explosion of your reaction, right? The explosion of that bottling up a feeling. So the other thing you need to understand is that in communicating how you feel, is that people may be slow, right? They may be slow at actually understanding what you are trying to communicate. But that does not excuse someone doing the same thing over and over and over again, and that person continuously disregards your emotions even after you've told them how you feel. That is not slowness. That is someone who doesn't care. They really don't care, because you should at least see a change if person is not hearing you, and if they are hearing you, they don't care. One important thing to remember is that you need to consider whether the other person is ready to hear what you want to talk about. This whole video I've been speaking about you, what you want to communicate, when you want to communicate. But remember that you are not communicating to consider that this person is going through so much, and maybe right now their mind is not to listen about how lonely you feel. Their mind is not to, and maybe you are feeling lonely, but they're doing the things they are doing is unconsciously because they are dealing with a lot. Other things is that they could be at work when you decide to communicate with. You need to put yourself in the other person's shoe. What I like to do is always ask someone like, hey, can I ask you this? Hey, can I talk to you about this? Hey, is it okay if I can say this right now? Hey, are you available to talk? That just, for me, I just feel like I'm trying to put your mind in a setting where you would listen to me, because I know how I would feel if I opened up and you didn't receive the message that I was trying to communicate. Ask yourself, is this person ready for what I'm trying to tell them? And sometimes readiness isn't just their state of emotional state, right? Sometimes it's their state of mind. It's their maturity level. It's their spiritual. That obviously means that they will not be ready to hear you. No matter how you put it, no matter what it is that you want to say, no matter how you say it, no matter when you say it, if that person is not in the right state of mind, all the things that we just discussed will not matter, because the person that you are throwing the message to will not receive it, and the message is lost. Learning to communicate, I can honestly say it's an ongoing journey, because obviously you meet different people that come from different places, that grew up in different ways, in homes where they were always criticized, in homes that they were not listened to. Even in their adulthood, they might not have found someone who actually listens to them. So communication is between two people, one person that wants to say something and that one person that needs to be ready to receive what the other person has to say. If someone is trying to communicate something to you, take the time to listen to them, not listen to respond, but listen to understand them, and do not internalize what they are communicating to you. And try to find ways that are better for you. What I do when I feel very overwhelmed with a specific emotion, and I know that the other person might not be ready to hear it, or might not take it well, or I'm not ready for them to actually hear how I'm feeling, but I need it out of my chest, I write it down, right? I write it down, and I basically write it down because it feels like as soon as I've written it down, I've gotten rid. So writing it down for several reasons, right? Sometimes it's not even things that I want the other person to know, but I actually need to, because it's this emotion. It's like, it's a lot, it's heavy, it's overwhelming, and I can't actually pinpoint what it is. So when I write it down, it actually makes me put it into a picture of, okay, this is how I feel. This is why I feel this way. this is how I would have liked to feel. And so you write it down to like let go of it. You write it down to be able to communicate it better to the other person, because some of us struggle with words, like finding words on the spot to communicate how you feel. Like sometimes you know how you feel inside you, but like the words, actually finding how to communicate how you feel is so hard. And it's important to handle other people's emotions gracefully, guys. It's important to actually appreciate and know that when someone opens up to you about how they feel about something, yes, some people just do it because they are mean, but most of the time it has taken them a lot of work. Trust likes to say basic kindness, basic kindness, that is like introducing yourself to the patient, asking for their permission, for their consent. She doesn't go step by step. She just says, yeah, basic kindness. So have that basic kindness, that basic gracefulness of, I want to hear you. I want to hear what your thoughts are. I want to hear how you feel. How does this make you feel? And also appreciate that this person, when they are communicating however they feel, is to give you an opportunity, actually a window into how they feel, but also giving you the platform to tell them how you feel, right? Or whatever. So you don't just leave them hanging for opening up to you. You actually kind of try to make them feel safer and tell them that that is your truth. And I acknowledge that that's your truth, but here's mine, and that is so beautiful. It's very, very beautiful. I'm sure you guys can see the beautiful plants behind me. I usually name my plants. I have another one there. I usually name my plants just like, I like naming things for no reason, but I got them from a shop called Florata here in Tbilisi, and I will actually show you a video. If you have any questions, if you'd like me to talk more on the subject of communication, and I just want to remind you that your feelings matter, your feelings are important, and there is always someone that wants to hear how you feel, how you truly feel. And yeah, find those people, guys. Do what is best for you. Learn what is best for you. If keeping things to yourself is what's best for you, don't force communication. Working towards being the best version of yourself. Do what is good for you, okay? Obviously not being selfish, but thank you very much for listening to my videos.
My baby, my Valentine. Can I hit the Mickey with the temperature? If you let you not need to survive, I'll be honest. I'm loving it.